I'm gonna hate myself in the morning for this.
Pulling that trigger, Charlie, will be just like putting a bullet through your own head.
Hello to all the classic people that are returning. I'm glad you're back. I want to welcome any new visitors. Today on Classic Movie Review, we are taking on Film Noir, Kiss Tomorrow Goodbye, 1950. This movie is rated an insanely low 7.1 on IMDb.com. On RottenTomatoes.com, this movie does not have its due with no tomato meter score and a relatively low 74% audience approval. In reading the reviews for this film, I noted that it was showing the same week as Panic in the Streets 1950, making it a pretty good week for hardened film noir viewing. New York Times film critic Howard Thompson reviewed the film on August 5, 1950, and didn't have much good to say about it. Quote, "All the snarling, mangling, triple-crossing, and exterminating on the screen of the Strand yesterday morning adds up to one thing. James Cagney is back in town and right in the same old crime groove. In Kiss Tomorrow Goodbye, adapted from Horace McCoy's novel and produced by the star's brother William, Mr. Cagney is taking up where he left off in last season's White Heat. Not nearly as rewarding, however. The new picture has a slick veneer, some lively episodes, and a couple of neat secondary performances, but as a whole comes off as a poor man's carbon copy of the Asphalt Jungle. Intentional or not, the similarity is there and a yard wide," unquote. Continued later with, quote, "Having assembled these characters rather graphically, the story proceeds to build up Cagney as a Superman of cunning and right jabs and peels the others down to puppet size while the suspense trickles away," unquote. I couldn't disagree with Howard Thompson more. Although the film's arc may be the same as White Heat 1949, Cagney is not snarling and snapping his way through a world he hates. Carter, the character Cagney plays, may be just as psychopathic and hate the world as much as Cody Jarrett, but the rage boils inside, not externally. This movie is a nice crime story and with an original setup to tell the tale in flashback. I recommend this movie as a good watch. Actors.
Right, and I'm a Shakespearean actor.
I was initially drawn to this movie by the long list of actors we have already discussed. The movie features one of mine, and probably one of your favorite actors, James Cagney, as a calmly psychotic criminal, Ralph Cotter. This amazing actor was first covered in a great comedy, one of his later films, 1-2-3, 1961. Two cops from the Maltese Falcon 1941 played cops in this film. They are Ward Bond as Inspector Charles Weber, and he was first covered in It's a Wonderful Life 1946, and Barton McLean as Police Lieutenant Reese, who was first covered in the Maltese Falcon 1941. An actor who I always enjoy, Luther Adler, played the crooked lawyer Keith Cherokee Mandan. Adler was first covered in the great film noir DOA 1949. An uncredited Neville Brand performed a small role as Carlton, the convict brother of Holiday. Brand was first covered in Birdman of Alcatraz 1962. Frank Reacher had a minimal role as Doc Darius Green, a reformed gangster that has switched to spiritualism as a con. Reacher was first mentioned in King Kong 1933. Kenneth Tobey played Detective Fowler. Tobey was first covered in the Civil War film The Great Locomotive Chase 1956. Covered in Trap 1949 are Robert Carnes as Detective Tom Gray and Barbara Payton as Holiday Carlton. Payton was as lovely as ever in this film, mocking the tragedy of her post-film career life, which includes stabbing, prostitution, and heroin before an early death. This story is all discussed in Trap 1949. Give it a listen if you haven't heard this sad tale. Steve Brody played secondary criminal Joe Jinx Rayner. Brody was born in Kansas in 1919. He played tough guys in B films, and it seems he might have been a rough-and-tumble fellow. He left school to race cars, box, and labor on oil rigs. Eventually, Brody found a job in summer stock. He moved to New York but had little luck until he moved to Hollywood. He began uncredited film work in Ladies Courageous 1944. Brody had a look that got him cast in bit parts in films like 30 Seconds Over Tokyo 1944, A Walk in the Sun 1945, and Anchors Away 1945. Brody moved to RKO and did a lot of work in the westerns. He also had his share of film noirs with Desperate 1947, Crossfire 1947, Out of the Past 1947, Kiss Tomorrow Goodbye 1950, Armored Car Robbery 1950, and M 1951. Other good movies Brody was in include The Arizona Ranger 1948, Guns of Hate 1948, Rose of the Yukon 1949, Home of the Brave 1949, The Steel Helmet 1951, Lady in the Iron Mask 1952, The Caine Mutiny 1954, The Beast from 20,000 Phantoms 1953, and Under Fire 1957. Brody worked extensively on television in the 1950s and 60s. From the late 60s, Brody began to struggle with alcohol. His career ended save for a couple of films. He died in 1992. Helena Carter played the role of Margaret Dobson, a woman with money. Carter was born in 1920 in New York City.
I'm walking here! I'm walking here!
Educated at Columbia University, she became a model and was then recruited for films. Carter had 13 film credits before retiring from the industry. Her first film was Time Out of Mind, 1947. 3 of her films were pirate movies, and a large percentage were focused around water bodies. Her last film was the sci-fi Invaders from Mars, 1953. Carter married in 1954 and left the business. She remained married until the death of her husband. Ms. Carter died in 2000. William Frawley had a small part as prison guard Byers. Frawley is a familiar actor for 2 television shows. Frawley played Fred Mertz on I Love Lucy 1951 to 1957. He was also Bub O'Casey on My 3 Sons 1960 to 1965. Story.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
The movie begins in a superior courtroom. The district attorney, Dan Reese, tells the jury that the 7 people on trial are murderers and are evil. The people on trial are Holiday Carlton, Barbara Payton as a murderess, Inspector Charles Weber, Ward Bond, an accomplice to murder, Police Lieutenant John Reese, Barton McLean, an accomplice to murder, Keith Cherokee Mandan, Luther Adler, attorney and accomplice to murder, Peter Cobbett, John Halloran, prison guard and accomplice to murder, Vic Mason, Rise Williams, an accomplice to murder, and Joe Jinx Rayner, D. Brody, as a murderer. The DA says there should be an 8th person on trial. Peter Cobbett is called to the stand. He begins telling his tale, and that flashes back to Cobbett, Byers, William Frawley, and another man waking chained prisoners for a day of work on the prison farm. Cobbett gives the nod to Ralph Cotter, James Cagney, who passes the signal on to Carlton, Neville Brand. The convicts are taken to a field where they work hoeing the ground. Cotter fakes that he is fainting. Byers takes him into the woods for a drink from the stream. Cobbett is guarding the stream. Cotter pulls an inner tube from the water and removes 2 revolvers from inside. Back in the field, Cotter slips a gun to Carlton. After a bus goes by, a car hidden in the woods honks its horn. Cotter hits Byers and the 2 convicts start running. Cotter shoots a guard that is riding a horse. Carlton gets scared and won't run. Cotter shoots him. Another guard on horse is bearing down on Cotter, but someone in the woods shoots and kills the guard. The shooter of the second guard is Holiday Carlton. Holiday and Cotter jump into the waiting car. Joe Jinx Rayner is driving the car. Holiday is breaking down, thinking the guards killed her brother in the escape. They eventually make it to the garage hideout where Vic Mason is ready to help them. Cotter asks if he can see Holiday and she gives him the brush off. Jinx goes back to the radio shop where he works. Vic tells Cotter that he owes $1,000 for the job. Cotter goes to get milk, but first he asks about Holiday's address. Cotter goes to Holiday's apartment. She is extremely hostile to him. She has gotten a room for her brother, and Cotter says he will take it. Cotter starts gigging her about being a criminal.
You assisted in a prison break, which makes you just as much of a criminal as the people you helped. Now, you can keep that holier-than-thou attitude as long as you like. But right now, I would say there must be, 13,000 policemen in this state who would love to put you away for a long, long time. Now, I'd bear that in mind if I were you.
Holiday insists that her brother was innocent. Finally, Holiday throws a knife at Cotter, but it just clunks him. She has crazy murder eyes. Cotter eventually beats her with a towel. She breaks down and becomes his girlfriend. Cotter has an idea to rob the grocery store and he wants to get Jinx to help him. Jinx and Carter rob the store. Carter pistol whips the manager. They calmly make a getaway. Jinx and Carter go to Vic's and pay him off. Vic is not happy that they robbed a store so close to his location. Jinx wants a bigger share, and Carter gives it to him. Vic calls Carter nuts, and he gets his foot stomped on for it. The police take the badly injured manager out to the hospital. All the secretary saw was BG. Big guns, big guns. Carter brags to Holiday about paying off her debt. She realizes he is dragging her in deeper and deeper.
What are you so gloomy about? You're off the hook, aren't you? You don't owe anybody anything.
Except maybe society.
Come on now, don't be foolish. You don't know where I got that money. For all you know, I might have found it in the street.
You're trying to get me in deeper and deeper, aren't you?
Sweetheart. Right now, you're in over your head.
A knock on the door leads to two cops, Inspector Charles Weber and Lieutenant John Reese, rushing in and nabbing Carter. They then begin a story about Vic giving all his money to help an old lady get treatment in Arizona.
He's got a heart as big as a Mack truck. You know what he did just before we come up here? He took all that money you paid him and put it right in the pot.
I don't think Carter here knows about the old lady.
Is that a fact? You don't know about the old lady? Well, she's very, very sick. We're sending her to Arizona. And how far will Mason's money go?
The two cops are hitting Carter up for a payoff. Carter hands over all the robbery money he has left. Weber orders the two to get out of town on separate buses. They give him his gun back. Carter starts to head out to steal more money. Holiday is now calling him darling. Jinx knocks on the door. Jinx has escaped without losing his money. Carter wants to do some kind of business with Weber. Carter takes the money from Jinx. He tells Jinx to set up the apartment with recording equipment. The recording will use cutting needles on 10-inch acetate discs. Carter goes to Vic's garage. Vic gets the jump on him with a revolver. Carter says he wants to buy a car. Vic wants nothing to do with him. Carter leaves and Vic goes to call Weber and tell the whole story. Carter sneaks back in and beats Vic with a pistol before dropping him into the grease pit. Jinx sets up the recording equipment at Holiday's apartment. Weber and Reese show up and start needling Carter. Jinx records the conversation in the back room. Carter pitches a payroll robbery to the cops that they can all split. The cops decide to go for it. After the cops are gone, Carter says they need a lawyer to help them. Jinx gives the name of Doc Darius Green, Frank Reacher, whom he says is no lawyer or doctor and he can't be trusted. Doc is a New Age philosopher and Jinx says he is nuts also. Inside the building they are giving New Age philosophy classes and reading. Carter and Jinx play along. Doc's assistant is Margaret Dobson, Helena Carter. Carter takes note of her looks. Carter talks to Doc. When they are alone, Doc rages at Jinx for coming to him.
How dare you come here? How dare you?
Easy, Doctor, easy.
I refuse to have anything to do with you. That life for me is over. I shall heal no more bodies. I shall heal only minds.
There's nobody to heal. All we want is a name. We've been looking for a lawyer of the right kind, and we didn't know where to go.
Go to the classified section of the telephone book and look at the lawyers.
They ask him about finding a lawyer. Doc gives them the name of lawyer Keith Cherokee Mandan. When the two men go outside, Margaret is sitting in a car. Carter convinces her to give them a ride to a phone booth. The movie switches back to the trial, and Mandan is on the witness stand. The DA asks Mandan how he was connected to Carter at all. In Mandan's story, Carter shows up at his home and asks for advice. Carter says that he has Weber nailed and that there is money to be made. Mandan thinks other lawyers are setting him up. Carter pulls a gun to keep from getting thrown out. Carter takes Mandan to hear the recording of Weber that they made. He is ready to go along but is worried that Weber is too tough to take down. Now Holiday believes in Carter. The next day, Weber and Reese arrive at the apartment. Weber goes right to work on Jinx about the payroll job. They bring Mandan out of the back room. Mandan has Jinx play the record. Weber's face shows he is caught. He smashes the record and pulls a gun on everyone. Weber is getting ready to shoot them, but Mandan says there are more copies of the record.
We haven't got any guns.
Where are they?
In the bedroom.
Where in the bedroom?
Beats me.
Cut that out, John! I don't want the coroner to find any bruises on these birds.
I told you you'd go too far.
I'm gonna hate myself in the morning for this.
Pulling that trigger, Charlie, will be just like putting a bullet through your own head. Now, you ought to know that there's more than a single copy of that record. But do you suppose we got you here just to slaughter us?
Cotter slugs Reese. Later, Cotter goes to Doc's to meet Margaret. She decides they can go for a drive and a talk. Margaret flies out of town driving an English roadster. Her driving does not shake Cotter. The two almost die as Cotter pushes the gas pedal from his side. Margaret is thrilled by the driving. Cotter tries to psychoanalyze her.
Why did you stop?
So I could light a cigarette and to let you drive if you want to.
I don't want to drive. What are you trying to prove?
Prove? I'm not trying to prove anything.
They get to kissing, but two motorcycle cops that have been chasing them arrive. When the cops realize who Margaret's father is, they give her a warning. After the cops are gone, Margaret won't tell who her father is, but they get back to kissing. In the morning, Holiday already knows about Cotter's date. She is not happy. She throws a full coffee pot and some other stuff at him. It turns into a laughing kissy fest. Cotter and Mandan go to the city hall. They go to the police inspector's office. Cotter is introduced under a new name. Mandan takes Cotter's gun and says he will get him a permit. They go in to see Weber and Reese. Weber has pulled Cotter's police record and they destroy it in the office. Weber is called in to see the police chief, Sam Tollgate, John Little. The chief says the grocery store manager has died and Weber has 48 hours to solve the case. When Weber gets back to his office, they force him to go back to the chief for a gun permit for Cotter. Weber says that Cotter should avoid federal crimes. Cotter asks about Margaret's father. Mandan says Ezra Dobson, Herbert Hayes, is rich, but Margaret is poisoned. Of course, Cotter starts seeing Margaret. They end up at her expensive apartment. Margaret ignores a request to call her father. Later that night, Ezra and two men barge into the apartment. In the bedroom, they find Margaret and Cotter, wearing PJs and sleeping in twin beds. Ezra orders his men to remove Cotter. Margaret says they can't because they are married.
So this is the reason you didn't call me. Take this man out of here.
No, Father, no.
You heard me.
Father, you can't. Ford is my husband.
Husband? You mean you're married?
Ezra basically calls her a tramp and says Cotter is not good enough. Ezra says he will know everything about him in 24 hours. Margaret is concerned that her father did not cave into her demands as usual. She tells Cotter how her father can destroy a man. Cotter feels safe with his automatic under his pillow. In the morning, Cotter is forced to relinquish his claim on Margaret and Ezra's money as part of an annulment. He refuses the $25,000 certified check, and Margaret believes it's true love. Cotter, Jinx, and Mandan case the pickups of some bookie bagmen. Cotter has the idea to get a police uniform from Weber. They go to one of Weber's private offices. Weber says that the gambler pays him based on a $20,000 daily pickup.
This may come as a surprise to you, but I've got a deal with Romer. What's going to happen when his collectors tell him they've been stuck up by cops? Who do you think he's going to come to? Why, he won't be satisfied till I put every cop on the force in to show up for him.
Inspector, his collectors won't be around to tell him anything.
3 guys disappearing all of a sudden must leave some kind of an echo.
An echo is not evidence.
They will just disappear. And Romer will think they've blown with his dough.
Cotter says they will kill the 3 men and make them disappear. Weber doesn't like the idea of murdering 3 people for $20 grand. Cotter gets the uniform and he and Jinx get ready to pull the job. The 3 pickup men arrive at the Tecumseh Pipe Shop. Jinx is genuinely nervous. Cotter acts like he's giving the driver a ticket. The other 2 get back in the car with the money. They tell Cotter that they work for Romer, can't be touched.
What do you want?
This man's name, going to write him a ticket.
On your way, copper.
What's the beef?
Parking in a loading zone and no driver's license.
We work for Romer, fella.
Well, I'm new on the force, and I don't know who Romer is, but it wouldn't make any difference if I did.
Cotter pulls his gun and it's a revolver. He gets in the car and Jinx follows him. When the gangsters get wise, Cotter shoots the one in the back seat. Weber and Reese get the call from Romer that his men are missing. Cotter and Jinx come in with the money. Cotter gives Weber 17 grand as a third of the take. Weber realizes that Romer has been ripping him off on his protection cut. Cotter says he will take care of Romer and he may take his business as well. Everyone is getting the idea that Cotter is crazy and will get them killed. Two cops, Detective Fowler, Kenneth Tobey, and Detective Tom Gray, Robert Carnes, visit Vic in the hospital. Vic fingers Cotter. Vic also tells him to go to Holliday's apartment. Back on the stand, the DA asks Jinx what he did after he left Weber's office. He said he went to Holliday's and counted the money, but he was sick about what they had done. Cotter comes in with champagne and gifts. Jinx tells Cotter he will not work with him anymore. Holliday says she will stay with Cotter. Cotter says he will kill Jinx if he doesn't stay in the gang. Jinx exits the room. Holliday says she is afraid and Jinx is too. There is a knock at the door. It is Mandan and he says he wants to talk outside. In the hall, he tells Cotter that Margaret and her father have visited him. Mandan says he will protect himself. Mandan has to take Cotter to Ezra. Holliday hears through the window that Cotter married Margaret. Margaret is happy to see Cotter. She asks about Mandan. They go to see Ezra. Ezra and Cotter have a private talk. Cotter says he doesn't want any of their money. Ezra says Cotter is the man that can control Margaret. He thinks Cotter has no interest in money. Ezra has stopped the annulment. Cotter tells Margaret that he will accept the offer. When they kiss, she feels the gun. Margaret takes it and throws it in the fountain. They decide to leave together. Cotter goes back to Holliday's apartment. She is sitting there numb when Cotter comes in. She throws a bullet from her brother's head onto the table.
So you came back?
Yes, I came back to get my money. I'm leaving. Where's the money?
Are you leaving?
Yes, where's the money?
You and your rich girl? And which direction are you going?
I'm going in all directions, and I'm taking my money with me.
While you're at it, take this with you.
What is it?
A bullet.
I know it's a bullet.
It's got my brother's brains on it. They dug it out of his head before they buried him.
Cobbett emerges from the back room. He has brought the bullet down from the prison. Holliday now knows that Cotter killed her brother. Holliday pulls a gun on Cotter. Cotter says his brother has a copy of the recording, and they will all be caught if he disappears. Another knock sounds at the door. Holliday says they're going to put him with the 3 dead bagmen. Cotter slaps the gun with his hat, but Holliday fires into his belly. He comes after her with a broken bottle. Her gun clicks once but doesn't fire. The next time she pulls the trigger, it fires and kills Cotter. The knocks on the door continue until Detectives Fowler and Gray break in. The scene switches to the courtroom where the original recording is being played. The man on the stand identifies the voice on the recording as that of his brother, Cotter. The DA declares that the state rests. I'll be back with the conclusions and the world-famous short summary momentarily. Conclusions. One glaring inconsistency in this movie is that all the defendants are charged with murder or accomplice to murder at the beginning of the film. Which murder or murders? Holliday killed a guard during the escape and she killed Cotter. So which one is she on trial for? Was Cobbett the prison guard charged with the killing of the guard during the escape, or giving the evidence to Holliday that led to the death of Cotter? The same for Vic. He just engineered the escape. Jinx was part of the grocery store robbery and the resulting death. He was also part of the bagman murder. Could he be tried for both at the same time? Weber and Reese were part of the bagman murders and an accomplice after the fact for taking the money from the grocery store robbery. Mandan was an accomplice to the bagman murders. So the way I see it, there should be at least 4 trials. The grocery store death, the bagman murders, the escape killing, and the Cotter killing. What bothered me more was that the defendants were called to give evidence against themselves. According to IMDb.com, the inclusion of a New Age spiritualist church was ahead of its time. It did very little to advance the story, saving have Cotter meet Margaret Dobson. By far the most interesting bit of trivia associated with this film is the juxtaposition of Holliday's and Dobson's characters in their professional life. Helena Carter as Margaret Dobson was wild and a danger seeker. At the same time, Barbara Payton as Holliday was relatively innocent at the beginning of the film, except for the whole prison break and murder thing. At the end of their careers, Helena Carter married and had an everyday life. On the other hand, Barbara Payton descended a path that led to her own destruction. World famous short summary, Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. This show is now completely free and independent, brought to you without ads. If you enjoy this show, please subscribe and leave a review where you get your podcast. It really helps the show get found. As a technical note, references and citations are listed for each show on the site at classicmovierev.com. Beware the Moors,